Triple G, FightJournal.com. Al, I told you, man. Yes, sir. FightJournal.com, baby. We here.
Rounds of boxing for the vacant IBF IBO Middleweight Championship of the World. Let's bring the fighters to the stage at this time. First, coming to you from Ukraine, his professional record stands at 13 victories, 10 of those 13 wins by knockout, only one defeat. Please welcome to the stage, Sergey, the technician, Derevyanchenko. And now welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. That sounds great. Please welcome his record, 39 victories, 35 wins by knockout. Only one defeat, one draw, voted by split decision. Ladies and gentlemen, from Kazakhstan, the former middleweight champion of the world, GENNADY Golovkin. First on the scale will be the young man from Ukraine. He's known as the technician, Sergey Derevyanchenko. Former middleweight world champion, looking to unify all the titles to become once again middleweight champion. This contest is for the vacant IBF and IBO middleweight titles. It all goes down tomorrow night at a mecca for sports and entertainment. Madison Square Garden, New York City, New York, USA. Triple G versus the technician, Derevyanchenko, for the middleweight title for the IBF and IBO. Middleweight
that was the weigh-in. Both guys in fantastic shape. We have the old man, Gennady Golovkin, once again in a title shot, or title fight, I should say. This time fighting for the same belt of a sanctioning body that made a dubious decision that likely cost him a shot at undisputed glory. He takes on Sergey Derevyanchenko for the vacant IBF title. And it's also for the vacant IBO title, which carries weight in my book. So Golovkin is 39 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. He's 41-0, in my opinion. And Sergey is 13-1. Many believe him to be undefeated also. This is a good fight. The odds makers favor Golovkin, not by a wide amount. And these two guys have Daniel Jacobs as a common opponent. And you can argue that minus the knockdown, Sergey fought Jacobs better than Golovkin did. You can make that argument. In this fight, Sergey is going to come out and have his moments, I think. While I really like what Jonathan Banks is trying to do with Golovkin, I think we'll see a little rebellion in this fight. A plan B of sorts. Let me explain. The plan all along was to get a third fight with Saul Alvarez. And I think the Jonathan Banks style would have served him, meaning Golovkin, very well against Alvarez in a third fight, had it taken place this year or the very next fight. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that's going to happen. For this fight, though, I think it'll work however it does early on, but I like the old Golovkin style in this fight, this particular fight. The seek and destroy guy. Not the one on his toes, boxing and sliding and moving defensively. And I don't think he'll do it. I think what I think will happen is Golovkin will box employing Banks's style, and Sergey, I think, will get busy in there and not fight on the run. Because what the style often does for Golovkin, the Banks style, is it'll make him a bit more defensive, because while he's coming in and moving his head and kind of bouncing and going side to side, you can time the bouncing with a straight right, even with a jab. And it's not, and while his head movement is okay, it's just not as fluid as it could be had he caught Golovkin when he was younger and had the reflexes like he did. And so you saw Steve Rolls have some success early. He popped Golovkin a few times. And I understand it was his first fight with Banks, but I just don't. There's certain people I like that style against. Like, I love it if he would have fought Saul Alvarez that third time. And while I still kind of like it if he does fight Alvarez again, dude is gonna be so old that they're gonna, like I said, his ring walk, they're gonna wheel him in a wheelchair to the ring. So so if Golovkin chooses to fight, if he chooses the Banks style early, which I expect him to do, he'll use his bread and butter. He has a top 3 jab in boxing. Top 3. I think he's number 2, actually. I mean, you got guys like Saul Alvarez and definitely my guy, Sergey Kovayev, who may be number 1 with the jab. Yeah, Kovalev may be the best or the second best if Golovkin isn't. Jamal Charlo, Young Maul, he's got a decent jab also. Ironically, maybe three of the top 5 or whatever are middleweights. Golovkin has to be careful with Sergey. Sergey is very crafty, and he knows how to win rounds. And that's what this fight will be all about early. Winning rounds. These are 2 high-level guys, not afraid to fight each other. It's kind of like the fight 2 weeks from Friday between Alexander Vozdik versus Artur Beterbiev or Beterbiev. Take your pick. Though this fight as well as that fight are just great fights that don't get the press like last week's fight did. By the way, Sean Porter received a $2 million guaranteed purse last week. Errol Spence Jr. also received $2 million. It's good money. For this fight, the numbers are crazy. Sergey, his guaranteed purse is $5.2 million. That's more money than Saul Alvarez offered him, folks. Gennady Golovkin is getting a $15 million guarantee. And so what he's done is he's going to split it up. He's getting $7.5 million in cash and $7.5 million in DAZN parent company stock, or equity, if you will. Canelo who? This fight is going to be 2 guys doing their thing early on. I just don't believe Sergey will have enough firepower, enough in the toolbox. And I say enough because he's going to go for it when he senses trouble. But by doing so, he'll enter into Golovkin's domain. And I'm telling you, the old man's instinct will kick in. So, the one thing you have to be aware of is when Golovkin senses danger. He's talked about how dangerous this fight is. He did the same thing when he fought Lemieux. he did the same thing when he fought Rubio. And he did the same thing when he fought Curtis Stevens. He had that look of concern in his eyes, and he made comments that made it seem like he was nervous, and he just talked about, oh, this is a very dangerous opponent. When he does that, when he's overly cautious, that's when that lion comes out, usually comes out. And I expect to see that lion, and I expect a TKO or a knockout by Golovkin. However, I think it'll come later, as early on, he's going to try to use Banks's style with the head movement on his toes. Instincts will kick in later, and I think G is going to cap it off late. So if he uses Banks' style, I hope it's more Thomas Hearns than like a like a Keith Thurman Jr. And what I mean is not too much movement, mixed with power. That's Thurman. That's his game. But more of a power jab and keeping within range at all times and setting up the big shot, which is more of the Hearns type thing. If he wins, I hope whoever asked the questions in the ring, I hope they press him on what's next. He wants Alvarez as much as Crawford wants Spence Jr. I get that. Everybody gets that. But there's this side of the fence who keeps demanding he fights Andrade, Demetrius Andrade. They won't call for Charlo or Alvarez or Jacobs, who just move up to fight Andrade, but everybody's on this Golovkin has to fight him next type of thing. What else? The middleweights. The middleweight division is sketchy right now. Nobody knows what Alvarez will do or if he'll fight at 160 again. Andrade is just lost in the wilderness. Jacobs is gone to 68. Golovkin is 37 years old. And Jamal Charlo is the Terrence Crawford of the middleweight division. And what I mean is, just like most of the guys people want Crawford to fight are with Premier. Well, all the top middleweights are with DAZN. So Charlo fighting Dennis Hogan on Showtime, it just won't cut it. That's his next fight. They're going to have to get creative with him. Well, here's a way to get creative. Let him fight the DAZN guys. Okay? And speaking of Charlo and Showtime, did you guys see the Claressa Shields debacle a couple of hours ago? What a joke. Someone tied to her, and she can deny it all she wants, knocked her opponent's trainer out cold. I mean, rearranged his face. And there's a picture of him. I'm not going to put it here, but if anybody wants me to email it to him, I'll send it to you if you want. But there's also a video out. He was leaking blood big time from his obviously broken up face. His name is James Ali Bashir. He's been in the business for years. And he worked under Emmanuel Stewart for many of those years. And then when Stewart died, he kind of decided, he was like a gym trainer type dude, like a Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, or what's my man's name in Philly? Danny Davis, who's Bernard Hopkins' gym trainer, or so on and so forth. And those guys have a lot of value. But once the old master passed away, he decided, and he's worked with Eddie Chambers in the past, and a lot of names. So if Bashir isn't 70 something, he's close. So, and there's a video of this coward who sucker punched him running out of the arena. And also in the video, James is on the floor with just the blood around him. I'll share that video as well as the picture if people want to email me. It's just crazy. I mean, he's busted up bad, and so they're in the photo. They took a photo of him before surgery. You want to have that before picture as evidence. Shields says she doesn't know who did it, but something tells me she does, and it might even be a relative of hers. We'll see. Not gonna make any accusations, but we'll see. Isn't this the same Claressa Shields that defended the Darrell's uncle when he tried to sucker punch Uzcata guy? Was it Uzcata guy that fought him? Yeah. That was at the MGM National Harbor in Maryland. And isn't this the Claressa Shields who also said Wilder dominated Fury? But then until Shakur Stevenson shut her down on Twitter. And then she was like, really? Maybe I need to watch it again. I'm like, no. Look, sis, everything isn't a black and white thing, okay? You don't always have to defend the brothers. Like, come on, man. She just doesn't get it. And she really doesn't get it outside of the ring. Now, I've seen her not get it inside of the ring also, but let's not forget, she's 24 years old and she has a sense of entitlement based on her ring accomplishments. So hopefully she grows up and she just be a fighter in the ring and be a lady outside of it. So we'll see. However, she's off the card, but the card isn't canceled. The show must go on, and it's on Showtime. So now, she gets bumped off the show, but you still get 2 highly touted prospects on the card, and they'll fight in different fights. First, you have heavyweight Jermaine Franklin, who's being hailed as the #1 U.S. prospect. I thought he lost to Jerry Forrest his last time out, which happened to be on Showtime, Showbox. Anyone with On Demand can find that fight. And a kid you really need to check out, if you haven't already, Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis is a welterweight from Philadelphia, and I think he beats some of the top welterweights right now. He's that good. So make sure you check him out. So if Jaron gets knocked out on Saturday, because I'm telling you to check him out, that doesn't mean my statement is false. Remember, Henry Armstrong, known as Homicide Hank Armstrong, who many believe is the greatest fighter of all time, he started his career like this: loss, win, loss, 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 Okay, so he was 1-4 to begin his career, and he's arguably the greatest to ever do it. And in his, as a matter of fact, in his debut, he was knocked out by a guy who was 7-6-3, and who retired with a record of 8-6-3. So, remember that, okay? And I say that because we live in a society where you got to keep that O. You know, had they rung a loss on Errol Spence Jr. last week, how many people would have jumped off the bandwagon? A lot. Same with Wilder, who lost to Fury but got a draw from a corrupt system. Same with Mayweather Jr. versus Castillo, the first fight. Same with Adrian Broner a few times at the lighter weights earlier in his career. And the list goes on. But for every guy like that, there's a Julian Williams and a Tony Harrison. Redemption, guys who suffered losses and came back and became world champions. So remember that. There was another point I wanted to add. Because boxing fans today, they are fans of boxers and not fans of boxing. Okay? They love fighters, but not fights, so to speak. So you become fanboys. But when those guys lose, I'm not going to tell you how many people jumped off the Keith Thurman Jr. bandwagon. Oh, man. Come on. The same's going to happen to Spence when he loses. And I thought he lost last week, but people gave up on Porter. That's why he was such an underdog. And when he turned in his performance, well, the fanboys were like, man, that was a great fight. But you know, I mean, Earl got him, but that was, yeah, okay, whatever. So don't write guys off when they get their first loss. It's not the end of their careers, folks. Ask Vasily Lomachenko, your #1 pound-for-pound boxer in the world, baby. Remember that. We'll do a recap on Sunday or Monday, and catch you later.
GENNADY Golovkin, Triple G, FightJournal.com. Al, I told you, man. Yes, sir. FightJournal.com, baby. We here.